Good afternoon, everyone. It's very clear, and we all know, that Maduro is a vile creature, ruthless in the way he treated the people of his country. There was an election which he lost, and so he's an illegitimate leader of the country. It's also very clear that our military performed excellently in the execution of the assignment they were given by the President of the United States. It is not clear what comes next. It does not clear how Venezuela becomes a democracy, which it can be, which it has been. And the President even threw the recipient of the Nobel Prize under the bus and now supporting Maduro's vice president, who's, by some accords, more ruthless than he. I know of this because I visited Venezuela when Chavez was there. He was horrible. He was horrible. I thought he couldn't be worse, but Maduro was worse. So this isn't about any regrets about him, and it's with praise for our military. But it's hard to accept any judgment on the part of our Secretary of Defense. Since this administration has been in, 37,000 people have been dropped from the Veterans Administration. And now they're announcing that 37,000 more will be dropped. I mention that because many of these workers at the VA are veterans themselves. And I don't trust the Secretary of what he says war. It's about defense of our country. There's a big difference in the word. He was the head of something called Concerned Veterans of America, some made-up name. For 20 years, I had meetings with 35 congressionally recognized veteran service organizations. His organization came in one day with some plan. We said, you're not certified, you're not at the table, that's it. Because their goal, as funded by the Koch brothers, was to privatize the VA. So while we praise the work of our military in this operation, let us be mindful what it means to our veterans if we're going to privatize it. And that is what he did as the head. That was his goal as head of the Concerned Veterans of America, whatever that fake group is. He was dismissed, as you know, for various reasons, which I won't even go into, but it was about incompetence. And now he's the Secretary of War. So when we go to a briefing and he's part of the presentation, it's very hard to come out with any respect for what has been said there. And again, Maduro's a crook, a thug, ruthless. His successor, the vice president, same thing. Our troops are wonderful. Let's not create a war that produces more veterans when you're in a place where you're firing people at the VA and wedded to moneyed interests that want to privatize the VA and make money off of it. I have no respect for the values that were presented there.
Madam Speaker, you've seen a lot of these administration official briefings over the years. Do you feel lied to by this set of briefers, this administration?
Well, I really can't talk about what's in there. You know, I have 30 years of intelligence leadership as the top of the committee, a member, a leading Democrat, and again, a gang of 8 for years. So I really can't speak to what has been said in these meetings and what my judgment is of what they said, but my judgment of who they are is what I was talking about.
The reason I ask is because many of the members have come out and said, well, I feel that they're lying to us, or at least they're not being honest. And I guess the question is, for administration officials like a Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense who are lying to Congress, what is the recourse for them?
Well, it's not a question of lying, it's a question of withholding the truth. Many things are true, but the complete picture is not always there. And they have their sort of funny way of brushing things off. But I'm not even going into the process of the fact that they have engaged our military in something that they haven't come to Congress for. But what I will go into is that we have yet to hear from them, and I'm not going into what's been in there, but we have yet to hear from them what the cost of this operation was. And what this is about oil, this isn't about drugs. If this were about drugs, he would not have pardoned Hernandez. It's about money in Honduras, and it's about money in Venezuela. It's about money in Argentina at the same time as they want to withhold health care funding for people in our country. So let's get back to the kitchen table. Let's not distract with all the rest of this. If this were truly about drugs, we would have serious funding for treatment on demand in our own country. That's the way to reduce drug use in America.
Madam Speaker, let me ask you a moment from a constitutional and a former speaker perspective about war powers. The idea that, Congress has some powers here, the president has some powers here. The current speaker has ruled out, saying, we don't need to be involved, meaning Article 1. What's your take on that and your response to Speaker Johnson saying there doesn't need to be a war
Well, I
power?
didn't hear what he said, but I think that Speaker Johnson and we have a friendly relationship. This is nothing personal, but it's very patriotic to say that they have abolished the Congress of the United States and have just said to the president, what do you want? Here we are. They're seeing a change in that because they're seeing the unpopularity of some of their policies, whether it's the stinking, lousy, dirty, rotten, which in their eye is beautiful bill that they passed, and it's very unpopular. You see it with what they're doing, withholding subsidies for people who need health care in our country. You see all of that. So it's because that's what the president wants. But the fact is, and this is not, I think, as far as the American people are concerned, they want to have their needs addressed. Whether they care about if and when Congress was notified is important to them, but it's more important to us because that's our responsibility, our respect for the institution, the separation of power, which was the beauty, the exquisite beauty of the Constitution, Chad.
Is he ceding too much power to the executive branch?
Absolutely, positively.
Detail.
Yes, well, name any subject. Name any subject. Look at a tax cut for the richest people in the country and not wanting to have subsidies for people with health care. Now, the list goes on and on about how they have just millions of people off of Medicaid, $500 billion out of Medicare. The list goes on and on. You know what the list is. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the current acting president in Venezuela might be just as bad as Maduro, even more so. Why do you think that the U.S. government is putting their faith, at least in the moment, in her, and why is that your assessment?
Well, first of all, it's not my assessment. It's the assessment of the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what she said. It's more ruthless under this person. It would be more ruthless under this person, and they're already seeing evidence of that. So I'm just quoting the person of the party that won the last election, but nonetheless, Maduro was declared president. What was the second part?
It was that, why do you think the administration is
allowing money. It's oil. It's about oil. It's about money. Follow the money every time. Follow the money in Honduras. How can you say this is about drugs when you've freed Hernandez and they say, oh, hundreds of tons of drugs have stopped now from coming into the country? Well, that's exactly 400 tons of drugs came into the country by Hernandez that he said he was going to shove up the nostrils of the gringos. So it's about money there, all kinds of different money in Honduras, and it's about money in Venezuela.
Follow up about the money, a question about the money. What is your understanding about where the proceeds from the oil that the U.S. is seizing will go? Meaning, will it go to the Treasury or will it go somewhere else?
Well, that's a question you'll have to ask the administration because we keep hearing different things. So you'll have to ask them what that question is. But the fact is that this could have been something quite remarkable if it were to restore democracy and self-determination to the people of Venezuela. Maduro, again, a crook, a creep, ruthless, terrible. His vice president, the same thing, following the footsteps. When I went to see, I'll just close with this, it might interest you. When I went with Sonny Callahan, he was the chairman of Foreign Ops and I was the ranking member. We were going to Colombia, to Haiti, we visited frequently, and on the way we went to Venezuela. We visited Chavez and his place. And what was interesting and insightful to me, as far as Maduro is concerned too, is you would think that Chavez was the present manifestation of Simon Bolivar. Big paintings of Bolivar, his books, his swords, all the rest of it embraced by Chavez. This, a Gurkha thug and all the rest of it, but nonetheless seeing himself as Simon Bolivar, and so is this guy. So in any event, there's real problems here. We have our own problems in our country. We want the president to focus on meeting the needs of the American people. And we don't know what the cost is of this, and we don't know where the money is going. But we do know is that we're going to have a vote tomorrow to present these pass these subsidies. I think there's been some good bipartisanship involved in that now in the Congress, and we look forward to a successful vote for the people tomorrow. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Give you a couple of thoughts and take one or two questions. I've spoken extensively on this after the Gang of Eight briefing, of course. As you all know, we heard from the officials that are here still on the stage taking questions from House members. We had, I believe, a full House. I think almost every member of the House, Republican and Democrat, were present today. I think the presentations were well received. I'll note, and you'll hear from others, that General Caine in particular, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, gave a very precise, detailed narrative about the operation and what happened, and it resulted in a standing applause for him and for our service members. There's a lot of pride in this institution for the people who serve in our uniformed services, and they deserve that. We have the most effective, most precise, most professional, most trusted military in the world. The United States is the last great superpower on the planet for a reason. We're the only ones capable of executing a mission like this and being able to get in and out so quickly without any casualties, and to bring justice to a criminal who had been duly indicted under American law. Let's remember that's what this is about. It was justified because Maduro is a narco-terrorist. He was involved with international criminal regimes that were doing great harm to the American people. That's why he was indicted many years ago. And with the superseding indictment more recently in New York, we went to apprehend a criminal, and that's exactly what happened. The Department of Justice requested the action. The military was prepared, as the U.S. military always is, to do that, and now this individual will be met with justice on U.S. soil. It's a remarkable thing, and it's something that every American should be grateful for. We are not involved with boots on the ground there. We are not engaging in a regime change. As you know, a interim president has now taken the post, and they will continue. Now, our hope is that this regime will not be engaging in narco-terrorism and all of this, the terrible activity that the predecessor of the interim president was involved in. You see the applause and the elation of the people in Venezuela and those in the country here who understand what's at stake there. And I think all of our partners in the Western Hemisphere, everybody in our hemisphere, understand the necessity of this. The world is safer because Maduro is apprehended and in the hands of the U.S. Justice system now. So that's what happened. I think that's what they're going to get. You're going to have some people who have questions and disagreements on play calls, but we elected a commander-in-chief to be able to do this. President Trump is a strong president. He takes decisive action, and that sends an important message to other dangerous people, terrorists and tyrants around the world. I think that's an important role for America to play. So,
can I pick up on the boots on the ground mention that you just gave? The administration is leaving the door open to that possibility, be it for Venezuela, be it for a potential coercion in Greenland. Based on the briefing that you got now and that you've had conversations with the administration, would you feel comfortable with service members being put in harm's way for these end games, whatever they are?
No, we don't anticipate boots on the ground. That is not the. Well, let me answer the question. That is not the administration's objective. That is not their expectation, and that I think that sentiment is shared by everybody in the auditorium today. We don't anticipate that's going to be necessary. Again, we went to apprehend a criminal. We did it with precision. It was justified, and that job has been done. We now hope that the people in Venezuela can govern themselves. We hope that democracy can be restored there in return. There are some great people in that country. They are blessed with tremendous natural resources. They ought to use that for their benefit. Now, with regard to the oil there's been lots of talk about that. There were questions about that in the room. Our U.S. oil companies have the capability to allow that infrastructure to be repaired and put back into use. And, of course, there's 30 million barrels or so that are at issue right now. The Secretary of State gave information in here that went a little further probably than the public comment that's been made, but all of that will be part of the transactions and the transition that happens in Venezuela. We're hopeful that this can happen on a very short order. We assume there will be elections set in short order, and we don't anticipate U.S. troops being needed or necessary there. We're hopeful that they can do it. Yeah.
What can you tell us about the governing strategy moving forward in Venezuela, and is it going to require American taxpayer dollars?
I don't expect that. I don't assume that any U.S. taxpayer dollars would be used to run an election in Venezuela. It's a competent country with good people. They just need better governance, and we hope that that can be delivered in short order. I think that's the intention, certainly, of the administration and of the Congress, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm not going to talk about what happened in a classified briefing, but I don't have any confidence that this administration has a realistic plan. I think it's a delusional way of thinking that this is going to work itself out. The what after is the important question. There's no question that we have the ability to do amazing things around the world with our military, to kill and capture adversaries. That's not the point. The point is, once we do that, then what comes next, and this administration doesn't have a plan for that.
Was that question posed, though, just the general idea of what is the end game? Because I know most lawmakers went in saying to us, like, that is the biggest question that they have.
Yeah, that was discussed. I'm not going to get into the details about it, but that is why I have no confidence, because the answer that was provided was not anywhere near sufficient. You know, I like to characterize this as a magic wand. Somehow this administration thinks that it has a magic wand that it can wave and solve really complicated, really challenging dilemmas that we now face in Venezuela. Thank you.
Several Republican senators came out with a plan for sort of dominance of the Western Hemisphere. Was it your impression that there will be more beyond Venezuela, places where the U.S. might be heavy-handed?
I bristle at this whole issue of dominance, right? Do we want to have friends and partners, or do we want to be an empire, right? Is this going to be just an extortion ring, where the administration extorts foreign leaders to extract concessions, or do we want to have friends and allies? I'm somebody that firmly believes that we are the strongest when we lead with our morals and our values, and we have friends and allies, and we simply just don't extort other countries like a racketeering racket. Thank you.
What was your impression?
Very impressed. It was really a hand in glove. Help him with that mic right there. Help her. The professionalism of our special forces and our military is beyond reproach.
Do they have a long-term plan? Like, do you feel confident that there's a clear end game?
I do. I think this morning with the seizure of the tankers, there's been a lot of blowback on that, and I think that's misdirected because obviously they're using the oil to fund our enemies. I think that's pretty apparent.
Was there worry expressed in that room about the ripple effects that it might have with Russia or China?
No, I think as a matter of fact, it was a very good offensive move because it's like when I play pool, I'm just hitting the cue ball. But I think this Trump administration is looking 3 balls down the field, and you clearly see China was there. The timing was impeccable. Sent a message to China. They need to back off. I think it sent a clear message to Cuba and some other dictators around the world that we're not playing.
We continue to hear no boots on the ground.
Right.
But did you come away with the impression that...
No talk of that. No talk of that whatsoever.
So there are reports that there are sporadic instances of
Yeah.
violence there.
We've had people on the ground there my entire life in this hemisphere. So to say, I mean, most of those jugheads in there couldn't name a quarter of the countries that our military is in right now. So that, to me, is not an argument anymore. I don't think we're putting boots on the ground per se. I just don't see that as a risk.
What is you said that there is a plan. Can you enlighten us as to what that longer-term plan is?
Well, it's just like the plan to do this. I believe if it was discussed, then that plan would be dissolved. So.
Did Greenland come up at all?
Did what?
Greenland.
No, this is clearly about Maduro in that case.
Even aside from the briefing, your thoughts on the White House rhetoric around Greenland and not removing a military invasion from the table, from their options?
I just think they're playing y'all. Y'all got to quit swinging at the low pitches.
So you don't
I don't. there's no military interest. I mean, other than rare earth minerals, which probably aren't so rare because we've got some of them here, just the bureaucrats won't let us get them. I don't see a military movement towards Greenland. There's no constitutional concern there. I just don't see that. That wasn't discussed, but I don't.
Did you get a sense of the timeline for any transition to elections, or is that still?
No, I did not. Everybody else good?
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
That Secretary Hegseth or Rubio have any kind of plan for what the president is trying to implement here?
No, I did not get a sense that they have any legitimate plan for what comes next. And although we obviously can't talk about their answers to questions in a classified briefing, there are a lot of questions from both Democrats and Republicans about what comes next, what the timeline is, and they basically refuse to answer any of those questions.
Were there any conversations in that room about where Machado factors in terms of eventual leadership?
There were questions, but there were no answers.
Congressman, any impression you got that boots on the ground in Venezuela might be possible if there are further instances of violence there?
I mean, at some point, you begin to question the value of these briefings when they're just lying to Congress all the way along, and have been clearly doing that for months now. So it's almost immaterial to try to tell you what the answer to that is.
What's the recourse for lying to Congress, though?
Well, you would think that Democrats and Republicans would stand up for this institution, but it doesn't seem that Republicans are willing to do that. I mean, they're basically applauding their own emasculation. And to stand idly by while this administration throws out the Constitution and lies to members of Congress who are elected to represent the American people, not this administration, it just blows my mind.
Congressman, you said that they didn't have some answers for several questions from members.
Well, I don't know if they didn't have them, or they were lying about them, or they just refused to answer.
Do you feel like they're winging it, though, or do you feel like they have a plan?
Oh, absolutely, they're winging it. I think the military clearly had a plan, but I think this administration is completely winging it.
Did the Russian flagged oil tanker seizure come up?
It did come up briefly, but I can't speak to the details, any details of the classified briefing.
Concerns about Russia's possible reaction to that?
No, I don't.
Resolution fails, what does Congress do from that? If the president decides to go to Greenland or Cuba?
Well, I mean, look, there are a lot of things that we can do. And we can have votes and we can have debates, and that's what Congress always does. We should not stand idly by while any administration, Democrat or Republican, lies to Congress. And I've been here through both Democratic and Republican administrations, and I have never seen the level of lying to members of Congress that you see with this administration.
Representative Crow just said that the administration is sort of relying on magical powers to make sure that things go the way that they want to. Do you have the same sentiment? Do you have any confidence that what you were just taught in there, that there's any kernel of truth?
I mean, if the administration is relying on magical powers, then that's maybe even more of a plan than they gave to us. They have no idea what they're doing. And look, I served in Iraq. I remember when the invasion was very successful. I was proud. I remember when George W. Bush said, "Mission accomplished." That's not the end of the story, and I don't think that's going to be the end of this story either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting speaker, Brad Sherman from California, 29 years on foreign affairs. As to the War Powers Act, there are two elements. One is notification. We know that the president gave notification to oil company executives without giving notification even to the top 4 or 8 members of Congress, saying that members of Congress would leak, I don't know about oil company executives. The second part of the War Powers Act relates to a possible invasion and pacification of Venezuela. That requires congressional approval, not just notification, but approval. Every administration since Nixon has claimed the War Powers Act cannot be enforced or is not binding on the executive branch. But Republican attorneys general have testified that the provision that I now have in the defense appropriations bill and have had in there for the last 10 years. No money shall be spent in contravention of the War Powers Act is binding. As to where the money would be kept, if it's kept in the United States, it's possibly subject to Venezuelan creditors. So it will probably, it's my understanding, it will be in a bank account somewhere where the creditors of Venezuela can't get at it, but under the control of the United States. We've had Chavez, we've had Maduro, and now we have Rodriguez. They are all ideologically very similar. Maduro was subject to substantial economic pressure and was not sufficiently compliant with the goals of the United States. We'll have to see if Rodriguez is. We have a limited amount of pressure on that government, and it appears as if the only thing that is Trump's bottom line is that she has to help American oil companies. So whether we will, I do not expect that this president will work effectively for democracy in Venezuela, but I do think he will work to make sure that American oil companies can profit from Venezuelan oil. The real question is, are we going to invade and occupy Venezuela? And I don't think we will. I don't think we should. I don't think it's legal without the consent of Congress. And in the absence of a belief in Caracas that we are about to, I don't expect them to provide any concessions except for ones that are probably in their economic interest, and that is better access for U.S. oil companies.
What power do we have here?
I'm the co-chair of the bipartisan CPA caucus. We do need better accounting for that half of our budget. And a number of questions were asked in the classified briefing about what did this operation cost us. And I look forward to the Pentagon cooperating with the CPA caucus to really tell us. That being said, I'm much more concerned about what the cost would be if we were to invade and occupy. Those costs, you're talking Iraq and Afghanistan level costs.
Congressman, do you think if the White House, the administration continues to not seek the consent of Congress for strikes, that you all should use the appropriations process to sort of send a message to the administration that funds could be withheld if that continues to happen?
A lot of things are going to change in about 10 months. I can't imagine that this House of Representatives would send any message, a majority message, to the president other than complete obsequious veneration. But I do think we can use the appropriations process, and in a way, the one provision I have in the appropriations bill is the use of the appropriations process. It is questionable what are the war powers of Congress versus the command powers of the United States. What is not questionable is the total power that Congress has over appropriated funds. And if any money is expended in contravention of the War Powers Act, there you have the use of the appropriations process.
Do you think the briefing provided any more support for a war powers resolution on Venezuela than there was before the break?
No. We were not told of any plan and what the casualties would be, what the cost would be of an invasion and occupation of Venezuela. And if we limit our objectives to additional oil company profits, I think we will get what we want from Rodriguez. It's not a great day for drug interdiction. It is a great day for oil company profits. And the drug thing was about the Hernandez point that the Speaker Emerita already made.
Can we get your just impression about, in terms of what if there may be a strategy moving forward for governing Venezuela? Do you have confidence that whatever strategy you just heard could be successful?
Big question. Did I hear a strategy? The answer is no. There's been no planning. Look, I saluted General Caine. The military dotted every I, crossed every T, went through every scenario, for months. from back in August. On the other side, as to what happens, there's been zero. There's no plan, nothing on how do we move forward subsequent thereto. All we've heard, the President of the United States has not said diplomacy or democracy one time. He's only said, we're taking their oil and we're going to tell them what to do. If they don't do what we want them to do, we're going to take them out. That's not democracy, and that's not hearing the voice of the people of Venezuela. The people of Venezuela, what they've been fighting for all along is having elections and having those election results adhered to. That's what they want. They also are concerned, and we didn't hear anything in that regards, those that are here in the United States and those that have escaped, you know, are they going to be pushed back to Venezuela now with this unstable government? Is TPS going to be restored to them, or are they going to be forced to go back? Those that are here. And let me also just say, you know, just to think that the longer that this lingers, you've got nefarious individuals that could try to take advantage. The ELN is still there. The FARC is still there. They're in the bushes somewhere hiding. And as long as you have instability, that then opens a door for them to try to take advantage and do certain things to the people of Venezuela. And then on top of that, don't the American people need to know exactly what it shouldn't they have the right? Not only members of Congress, I mean, clearly those oil barons who wanted, they have the right to know because the president has said, he told them before the invasion, talked to them before, and he talked to them right after, even before he talked to members of Congress and the American people. So don't the American people have the right to know at least how much it cost? We have no clue of how much this has cost the American people. We are about to, you know, many Americans, people in my district are talking about now they can't get the tax credits that they need for health care. We were about to talk about the issues of affordability in the budget that we've got to deal with and hopefully not have another shutdown. Won't give them a dime, but won't tell us how much money we're spending right now or how much we've spent with the ships just waiting and sitting for months in the Caribbean Sea. What does it cost us? And guess what the results of all what those $1 billion are? To get 2 people. Billions of dollars to get 2 people. Bad people, admittedly. You know, people who don't deserve to be the president of a country, but billions of dollars to get 2 people. And then a person who we know was a narco trafficker gets pardoned. Is that rational?
You just made a point over there comparing Maduro to what we saw in this country with January 6th. Can you just make that point again?
Yeah, so it seems to me, you know, one of the things that the president might be upset about is that Maduro was successful in stealing an election and the results just, well, Donald Trump was not. That's what he's trying to do, and that's what he continually says, that he won the election when clearly the count was not there. So I don't know whether he's upset about that because Maduro was successful in stealing an election, and he was not. And as a result, what he did, just celebrated January 6th, he pardoned all of those who was in conspiracy with him to try to steal an election in the United States of America.
Did you get a sense at all of the implications for Colombia, Cuba, especially if there are people leaving Venezuela going to Colombia?
Well, I will tell you that there is great concern, and I've heard today, you know, because of that kind of instability, and if it lasts long, people will be running across those borders from Venezuela continually to Colombia, to Brazil, to Peru, to all the countries neighboring there because of instability. And, you know, what we've also heard today, and I've got, you know, some sources that come back to me that's on the ground, people that I know for a long time because of relationships in Venezuela. They just passed a law saying that they're going to go after individuals who either agrees with what took place, etc. So the people in Venezuela on the streets are scared. So this does not help at all in that regards. They want democracy. They want to be safe. And that's still an issue. Thank you.
Is there going to be another war powers vote in the House on Venezuela?
Probably.
Can you lead that or whatever?